Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Magwa. We begin the week with a rundown of the major happenings in the FCT this past week. New security measures were approved by the president for the southeast and southern parts of the country. The president is also pledging to deal with bandits, and new COVID-19 restrictions were introduced. It's time for our Abuja Wrap.
President Muhammadu Buhari has approved new security measures for the southeast and south-south geopolitical zones to restore peace in the regions. Approval comes after the third Security Council meeting in 2 weeks.
The Security Council meeting, which has taken place 3 times within the last 11 days, has assessed the situation in the country, particularly in the southeast and south-south. We have some measures which we have outlined, and it has been approved by the council, and we will see how we can change the narrative within the quickest possible means to restore law and order and restore peace in that area. We solicit all law-abiding citizens to work with us to identify and deal with the situation.
Following concerns raised over the security challenges in the country, the president is promising the use of all available resources and manpower to deal with bandits and ensure that they do not disrupt food production in the coming farming season. He made the promise after observing the Eid el-Fitr prayers to mark the end of the holy month of Ramadan.
The law enforcement agencies are working hard to regain confidence against the bandits so that people can go back to the land. This is very important. This is what the law enforcement agents are very busy about now. The rainy season is coming, so we want people to go back to the land so that we can get enough food for the country and even export.
Meanwhile, the leadership of the Nigerian Air Force says the 57th anniversary of the force will provide an opportunity to strengthen collaboration and cooperation with other military operations to effectively combat the threat of insecurity in the country. The chairman of the organizing committee for celebration, Air Vice Marshal Hassan Abubakar, made this known while briefing newsmen on the activities to mark the 2021 Nigerian Air Force anniversary.
The theme of the 57th anniversary celebration is enhancing Nigerian Air Force air power capabilities for effective joint operations in response to contemporary national security challenges. And it aims at emphasizing the renewed focus on cooperation and collaboration between the services in military operations. It is also in tandem with the Chief of the Air Staff's vision, which is to enhance and sustain critical air power capabilities required for joint force employment in pursuit of national security imperatives. For us to support surface forces, there is no doubt, there is no question that we must have very good liaison, very good cooperation, very good collaboration with those forces. So we have very good collaboration, very good cooperation. But you know, in everything, in every process, there is always room for improvement. So it's what we have been doing, but we are looking for ways to make those things, activities, more efficient, more effective.
In the meantime, President Buhari received General Muhammad Idris Deby, the president of Chad's Transitional Military Council. At the meeting, which was held behind closed doors, President Buhari pledged that Nigeria will assist the Republic of Chad to stabilize and return to constitutional order, while General Deby pledged to return to civil rule in the next 18 months. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs interpreted his media address. The president also met the outgoing head of the European Union in Nigeria and ECOWAS, Ambassador Ketil Carlson. President Buhari used the opportunity to praise the European Union for being of help to Nigeria in several ways, including humanitarian and trade relations. The federal government has reintroduced restrictions on mass gatherings to 50% capacity, following a critical resurgence in fatalities in India, Brazil, and Turkey. The Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 announced a nationwide curfew as part of the fourth phase of the eased restrictions of COVID-19 lockdown.
Effective from 0001 hours of Tuesday, 11th May 2021. This phase 4 of the first restriction of movement shall come into effect. We shall maintain restrictions on mass gatherings outside work settings with a maximum number of 50 people in any enclosed space. Approved gatherings must be held with physical distancing measures and other non-pharmaceutical interventions in place.
Meanwhile, the federal government is planning to inoculate at least 2 million people, including those in security-compromised areas. The executive director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency made the announcement during a joint virtual media briefing with the African Center for Disease Control. Staying with the health sector, the Presidential Committee on the Review of Hazard Allowance for Health Workers in Federal Government Establishments has received proposals from healthcare professionals in the sector who have been agitating for an upward review of their hazard allowance. The meeting was adjourned till June to enable the government team to study the proposals and come up with a position. The federal government has launched the 112 Mental Helpline to provide nationwide free telecounseling services to address the adverse and worsening psychological effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking at the launch in Abuja, the Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, Senator George Akume, explains that it is a collaborative effort with the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy to tackle the increasing mental health challenges of Nigerians.
Welcome back. Let's get right into it. The images, especially from India, are scary, terrifying even. And yes, any smart government right now should be doing its best to ensure these deaths are not replicated in their countries. And to be fair, that's what the Nigerian government is doing. But can the country survive these restrictions? And how do people feel about them, considering the impact the last lockdowns had on the economy? Our feature story explores this peculiar dynamic, and we pound the pavement in the nation's capital to get the mood of its residents. Pape, a shanty community, is 10 minutes drive from Abuja's city center. The slum has survived several demolition attempts by successive governments, with series of court cases between the FCT administration and residents on resettlement issues. Pape has a growing human population and a corresponding rise in the number of shanties. In April of 2020, when the FCT administration started community testing, Pape presented the opportunity to find active cases in the nation's capital, and it proved right, as the area was marked as high risk in view of the number of cases recorded during the community testing. A few months after, many of the residents are still not complying with the protocols. Like other parts of the country, the nation's capital is witnessing a low record of infections. According to statistics from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, the federal capital has the second highest number of confirmed cases, with 19,838 cases as at May 13, 2021. While over 500 are still in admission, 166 deaths have been recorded. Nevertheless, the authorities are calling for caution as the fourth phase of the COVID-19 pandemic kicks in. The reintroduction of the restrictions during the fourth phase comes with reactions from residents of the nation's capital.
What they eat in India is not what they eat here in Nigeria. Because I eat apple, I saw those other things, but don't do that in Ghana, in India. Therefore, this thing there, the weather and whatever is not the same thing of here in this country. I could remember the time they talked about this COVID-19, coronavirus. We had this killing over there, this and there. But here in Nigeria, the figure that are giving us, anyway, is those that believe, but to me, I don't believe. And that time, people are eager to hear coronavirus, how many people, but this time around, nobody is eager to see whether the figure on TV or wherever, because some of Nigerians, they believe that what the figure they are giving to us is totally lie. They are just using that to fill their own pocket for their own selfish interest.
The truth about it is restriction, to me, is not the major issue now. What should be the issue now is the foreign, like coming and going out of the country should be the major concentration. Like people that are coming in, if there is a specific test they can be doing for them, to know that those that are coming in are not having this virus. So there's no reason restricting the people that is in Nigeria.
If you want to enforce such, you want to bring such an enforcement, there must be a preparation for it. The first set of lockdown affected people. For example, for somebody that is not government worker, that is not expecting salary, and you lock them inside. And some of the food, some of the items, the palliative they want to give to people, they refuse to give to people. Most of those palliatives are being hoarded. People that are supposed to receive that palliative couldn't get it.
Actually, it's reasonable because it's a global thing. You will have to abide based on, But the only thing is that let it be something that has to be minimal. Let there be some consideration because you have to eat first. You have to survive. For you to start talking about other measures.
I come in contact with a friend who stays in Canada. They don't work, they stay indoors, but the government pay them. The last time they said they shared palliative or whatsoever, some of those materials they shared, they distributed, they were not even good enough. So I think government should just sit up and do the right thing.
The FCT is one of the epicenters of the pandemic, and the Federal Capital Territory Administration is not leaving any stone unturned in ensuring that the guidelines issued for the fourth phase is complied with. The guidelines include enforcement of curfew from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. Nightclubs, gyms, and others will remain closed till further notice. Gatherings of religious groups and weddings, among others, have been reduced to 50% attendance. All government engagements, meetings, and conferences are to hold virtually. Attendees at gatherings must wear face masks and maintain social distance. There are no limitations for public transportation, but operators must ensure compliance to protocols. All employees of the Federal Capital Territory and the 6 area councils on grade level 12 and below are to work from home. Mandatory use of face masks shall be strictly enforced in public offices. For some residents of the FCT, these restrictions have some impact on their businesses.
I'm a businessman. I need to travel, do night journey. When we travel from a night, enter the place in the morning and buy goods and return back again, it will distract our business and it will affect us as a businessman. So government should allow us alone. Allow the people of Nigeria to just breathe small. We are suffering, seriously suffering. It's on the ground. Imposing another lockdown is to inflict another suffering upon the citizens of Nigeria, which is not good.
Sincerely, you can see from my looks, it's really bothering. Because one, I have an event for my little girl, Bianca of Africa, 7-year-old girl. And now they come and say that I cannot have more than 50 persons. So definitely it's affecting a whole lot of things. And with the state of the economy and everything that is happening in the country, it's not going to be fine with a lot of people, sincerely.
The government continues to encourage Nigerians to take personal responsibility to help in reducing the cases of COVID-19 in the country, while the enforcement team have been mandated to carry out arrest of violators and prosecute them through the mobile court system. My guest on the program has been ensuring compliance to COVID-19 guidelines in the nation's capital since the pandemic. And it's been grueling work that's earned his task force many friends and many enemies. With the present situation in the country, I want to know how he intends to enforce these new guidelines and what plans he has for the uphill task ahead of him. Mr. Ikaro, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you very much, Kayla. Long time I've not been around.
Oh, yeah. But the fourth lockdown is on right now. A lot of people in Nigeria probably don't quite understand what it means. They're looking back at how you ran the enforcement during the first, second, and third lockdowns in the FCT.
Indeed.
And they're thinking maybe that's what's going to be happening. Could you break it down a little so people can understand? We get it, that gatherings will have to be reduced to 50, places of leisure would have to shut down. But what else should the residents of Abuja be looking at?
No, I think if we look at it from the just concluded Eid al-Fitr, that marks the end of the holy month of Ramadan and the commencement of the month of Shawwal by the Islamic calendar 1442 after Hijrah, the fundamental fact is we are seeing something dangerous happening across the world, and the world is just a global village. Now, as we are talking here on Channels Television, we are being watched around the world. Those days where the world is just one big mighty enclave appears to have already evaporated. Now we are all together in a cycle. So if something is happening in India, in Turkey, in Brazil, we know for sure that it is just around. And we've heard that the very deadly variant in India or South Africa is already in our neighborhood in the West African sub-region. So we are trying to be lot more careful here. Let's not just feel, okay, it's one Indian thing. As we said before, when it was in Wuhan, it's just one China's, let me use Donald John Trump language, it's one China disease until it struck the U.S. and got thousands down in the grave here. I think what we are looking at from what the PTF is bringing is for us to ensure that we are safe. Besides being safe, let's be very careful so that we don't get ourselves unprepared and be struck like what we are seeing in India. So it's one full package. Everyone really wants to see this tough enforcement. But like I said the last time I came here, if people own the process, you won't need to have people go around the street. There are countries where people own the process. They need little enforcement without even a lockdown. Well, this one is not a lockdown per se. It's just some restrictions to actually guide us. And that's what we saw during the Eid prayer. The minister called the leagues of Imam and Ulamas, headed by Imam Adogun, and they all came together. We all sat with the minister, with those from the head secretariat, headed by Dr. Kawo. We sat together and we looked at it from all angles. Yes, we got the Eid prayer ground. Yes, we got the mosque environment. Many thanks that the Eids and the 2 rakat prayers will be said outside here. But the problem we'll be having will be the Eid prayer ground at the at the airport or the national Eid prayer ground.
Yeah, but it didn't hold, right?
No, we agree that we will not be opening the national Eid prayer ground.
Yes, because I know that yesterday, when the Salah celebrations were happening, there were no prayers at the Eid ground.
Okay,
but my question basically has to do with the FCT for this lockdown.
No, for these guidelines.
For these guidelines.
Not lockdown.
What should the residents of the FCT what should they expect in terms of enforcement? Because you've headed the enforcement team for the first, second, and third lockdowns, with the fourth one coming up. Guidelines, lockdown, whatever we're trying to call it.
Yeah.
What should the residents expect?
What they should expect, strongly, speaking very plainly here, the first thing we expect from them first, before I answer your question, is for us to own the process. But should they not own the process, then we must enforce compliance. It's very plain, because one, the guidelines have been given that we shouldn't have overcrowded gatherings here. When it comes to religious organizations and places of worship, we should have it 50%. Although some of them are very large, wherein you have 50% of some worship centers are even as much as 50,000 persons here. That one is already there. The other one for events and others, not more than 50 persons being crowded, allowed to be in a particular place. Sometimes they can also do outdoor events here. The issue of nightclub, the issue of parks and garden, those ones will have to do what I call filtration. We must engage in filtration to filter out where they stand. Let me explain this, Kela. In every garden in the FCT, a church meets there. Almost all the gardens, a church meets there. Some of them have mosques also praying in the garden. Those in the neighborhood pray around the garden. We have restaurants in most of the gardens, and restaurants are allowed to open. Places of worship are allowed to open. Some offices are allowed to open, and no particular garden is just a drinking joint. In that sense of which, say, okay, go and shut down bars and others and drinking joint. So when you go to a place, you actually have to check and ensure that the restaurant that is allowed to be open is open to cook and sell food, because persons must eat. The place of worship that ought to meet in whatever it is, as a mosque or as a church, they are allowed to meet. While we now filter the other ones who gather there for extremely wild drinking and others, that may just be the issue here. But some also ask you whatever. But I think we are looking at that. But the other ones that are to be shut down, they must be shut down. That's the truth. It may sound very harsh, but they must be shut down.
What about schools?
The schools are allowed to open.
Okay.
Schools are allowed to open. But those who actually manage those schools must ensure that the teachers comply, the students comply. They must ensure that they have hand washing points. They must ensure that they guide the students are properly, and they ensure they have the structure for discipline, which they have, where you have a principal, VP admin, VPR card for government schools. You have, what do you call it now, discipline master, you have duty master, you have form teacher, you have prefects, you have class monitor. All this can also help us within the classroom to what we observed the last time, which we found out very, very bitterly. Some of the teachers who teach don't even comply. So we felt very bitter about it, that students will come to school with face masks, and they get to school and the teachers don't put on face masks. And we frowned at that very bitterly.
It is pretty disappointing, but you do have to understand that many people probably tired of this whole disease and, you know, all the stress that comes with having COVID. The economy is incredibly slow. You know, we have people who are complaining. A lot of people have lost their jobs. There's hunger in this country right now, and there's insecurity on top of that.
Correct.
How are you going to handle the fact that people are just tired?
Yeah.
We're blaming everything on COVID.
COVID fatigue.
Yes, everyone is, yes, there's COVID fatigue right now. And that's because every single thing that hasn't led to some sort of economic growth has been blamed on COVID. So the country is filled with people right now who are tired of COVID. And we just want to move on with our lives. A lot of people actually embrace the vaccine because of that. We just want to move on with our lives. With another lockdown because of this strain.
No lockdown yet, just guidelines.
Guidelines, with these new guidelines because of this strain in India. How are you going to handle the fact that many Nigerians probably just done with this and will probably not be very compliant, so to speak?
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you very strongly. Even like what we have raised, what we have observed, beside the FCT and maybe 1 or 2 or 3 states, many states don't even care at all. But the FCT Minister, Malam Mohamed Musa Bello, is saying that whether we like it or not, we must learn to be extremely very careful, even if the danger can come from other states, because when people are not serious, it's just an appeal going forward. But when it comes to enforcement, I'm very confident that we will enforce and do our duty as persons choosing to do such, believing that we will save. But I'm praying as a man of faith that we don't get to India, we don't get to Brazil, we don't get to Turkey, because I don't like what I'm seeing there.
Well, you have your work cut out for you. You're dealing with COVID fatigue. You're dealing with vaccine hesitancy.
You're dealing with disbelief.
You're dealing with disbelief. You're dealing with conspiracy theories. And you're dealing with the fact that a lot of religious leaders have told their members, don't take this vaccine. So with all of this and trying to enforce, you're not calling it a lockdown, restrictions and guidelines. I wish you all the best in the months to come.
Thank you very much.
We'll be checking up on you to see how you're doing.
We'll get to just that the gray hairs will increase, but we'll be going on with it. It's okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akara, for being on Dateline with us.
Thank you very much, Kela. Wonderful time being with you.
This COVID-19 variant from India is officially known as B1617, and it spreads faster. It's resistant to many of the treatments given to patients with COVID, and it is also resistant to the AstraZeneca vaccine. Look, we all have COVID fatigue. I am tired of wearing masks in public. I'm tired of hand sanitizers, and washing my hands for 20 seconds constantly is running up my water bill. I want to hug again, and party, and go clubbing, and travel, and go to concerts. I want my life back. But we have to stay healthy for ourselves and for those not as healthy as we are. So please take these guidelines seriously. That's our show this week. Remember to let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayla Megwa. See you next time.